Hey, Edgar, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Wow, that's a
Is this,
beautiful studio setup that you have.
oh, well, thank you. Is this Darren I'm speaking with?
This is Darren right here from New York. Are you dialing in
Yeah,
from Beaumont or LA or
that's
where?
it. This is beautiful Beverly Hills. I'm
Nice.
the authentic Beverly Hillbilly out here.
Yeah, just a few years there, I can imagine. But I'm so glad that we were able to connect. I've been following your music for decades now, but the new album is fantastic. Obviously a very personal album. When did you start recording it? Because there's a lot of special guests on
Yes, there are. It's been about 3 years in the making, almost, and it uh, it started, shortly after Johnny's passing. I was approached by a number of people, and the timing just didn't feel right. And they just felt more like deal offers, people sensing a business opportunity.
there.
And it was an obvious thing to do. And I just wasn't emotionally ready or prepared to do it for a number of years. I spent years not making the record and then years actually getting around to doing it. But it was something that I just literally felt that I had to do. I felt compelled to do. Johnny is my all-time musical hero,
Hmm.
and I want to acknowledge and thank my lovely wife Monique, to whom I've been happily and blissfully married now for 43 years. We just
Hmm.
had our wedding anniversary last month, but she actually helped convince me to do the record because as I said, I hadn't entertained the idea of immediately, but uh, when I talked to her, she was very definite about it. She said, "Well, you've always spoken about Johnny
Hmm.
and about how." If it weren't for him, you wouldn't be where you are, and his being your musical hero. And here's your opportunity to acknowledge that. You owe it to yourself, to Johnny, and to the world. And I'm just so happy that I've made it. And my heart is just overflowing with joy and gratitude. We just found out yesterday it's #1 on the Billboard Blues chart.
Well
Uh,
deserved. I mean,
well, thank you, Darren.
it's not your first number one anything. It's not your first piece of success, but you make a really good point when you said you didn't want to go with a record company that was just going to go, oh, okay, it's X number of units because it's a personal record. And putting it on, it starts off with a gem, Meantown Blues. When you recorded Meantown Blues, did you know, hey, this is the album starter?
No, we didn't decide on the sequence until the album was complete. The first thing I did was to choose the songs.
Hmm.
And to me, like, there were certain songs that I felt uh, obviously had to be there, like Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, Still Alive and Well. And then in the second tier of those songs were Johnny's originals. To me, Meantown really exemplifies Johnny's early writing.
Hmm.
And it is, as you said, it is a gem, and it actually displays something that I think a lot of people are either unaware of or don't fully appreciate, and that's his fusion of blues and rock.
Hmm.
And it's such uh, like, I remember the first time I heard it, I said, wow, it sounds like it's like an old primitive slide guitar riff, almost like a John Lee Hooker thing, but it has this intensity and energy of full out rock and roll. How did he do that? And
Right.
that was sort of the model for a lot of his early writing. I'm Yours and I'm Hers is a lot like that. But it was, I thought, the perfect song to lead off the album. And Joe Bonamassa just did an incredible job. Uh, I didn't, one other thing, I did not associate the songs with any particular artist. I wanted the people that are on this album are the people who really wanted to play on it. And they're doing the songs that they wanted to do. I always gave them a wide selection of songs to choose from. And the first one that Joe picked was Self-Destructive Blues. And I remember when I was talking to him on the phone, and we were discussing going over a song list, and I got to Self-Destruct. He said, "Wow, you're really going to do Self-Destructive? That's the first Johnny Winter song I ever learned and played with my band." And he was so excited. And he came in with his Firebird and old Basement amp, the exact rig that Johnny used. And I swear, I closed my eyes and I felt like Johnny's presence was in the room. Of all the people, I think he came the closest to channeling Johnny. And I also want to say that was really never my intention. I did not want to do a nostalgia album or a sound-alike album. And for the most part, I just, like, I didn't want to pick the usual suspects. I wanted a sort of a varied, interesting array, an interesting cast of characters, which I hope I succeeded in assembling there. But
sure. Yeah, well,
you know, Joe, the thing is, like, he actually had to dive deep into the Johnny slide style, which I think is the most unique thing about Johnny's playing, was his authenticity as a blues slide player. And I thought Joe just captured that so amazingly. So there you go.
You mentioned that cast of characters, which I was interrupting on, because Taylor Hawkins, who we dearly miss, Steve Lukather, Greg Bissonette, Joe Bonamassa, multiple generations of great artists. And that's actually something that's unique about you. You've been able to collaborate your whole career with different generations, different genres. There's not a lot of people that I get to interview who've been sampled by Tupac or Eminem. so
yeah, good point.
Yeah, you were unique in that, realm. So that makes me curious about something. Were you always happy to collaborate with other artists, or was this a lesson that you learned from working with other artists?
Well, it's just something that naturally occurred. It was nothing that I set out to accomplish. And, to be honest, I never thought I've ended up sharing the stage with people I never even expected to meet, much less have the honor of playing with. And just so, Leon Russell and I had a band together for a number of years. Michael McDonald called me out of the blue to join his first band, after the Doobies, the first solo band that he put together, and invited me to play on his first solo album, if that's what it takes. And it was just such an honor. And I love Michael. And those are examples. Like Michael McDonald and Ringo Starr are not people that you might expect to see, but that all came about basically through Joe Walsh. And Joe, I had said that I didn't associate a song with a guest, but in this one case, I asked Joe to do Johnny Be Good, and he picked another song. And he, Joe and I go way back to when he was with James Gang, and we played shows together in the 70s. And I used to do that song with Johnny, and it was such it was a song that had to be on the album. Just a quick story. When we were kids, like, you'd think Johnny Be Good is so obvious. It's Johnny Winter tribute, Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
But the actual backstory behind that is that when I was 12 and Johnny was 15, there was this big local talent contest. And our band was Johnny and the Jammers. And our hottest song was Johnny Be Good. So we entered that contest, played the song and won. And first prize was you get to make your very own record. So that song was really responsible for starting our career. And had it not been for that, who knows? But the thing was I wanted to sing that song with somebody, and I thought Joe would be the perfect guy. And he said, well, it's that traditional Chuck Berry. I don't know what I can bring to that. Let me hear some other some other things. And much to my surprise, he picked Stranger. He did sing with me on Johnny Be Good, which I just loved because it felt just like, it felt so real. We had our arms around each other and we were singing, "Yo, go, Johnny, go." It just reminded me so much of doing that song with Johnny. But he picked Stranger, which is a very, one of my absolute favorite songs. And, you know, I tried to pick the songs that every song has a personal significance to me on this album. And I didn't want to just do, I thought about when I started to do, should it just be a straight ahead blues tribute to Johnny's legacy, or should it be more a personal dedication from me as Johnny's brother to him? And I thought it should be a balance of both. And Stranger is always one of my absolute favorite, beautiful ballad, very uncharacteristic of Johnny, sensitive, and reveals a sort of a vulnerability that you kind of don't expect from Johnny. But Joe, I always think of Joe as a rocker, and I expect him to pick a real up tempo, a real barn burner. And I was so surprised when he picked Stranger. He did a beautiful job, you know, translating that. And then that led me to think of Ringo, and I dreamed of having Ringo on the record. I really didn't think there was much chance of his agreeing to do it. But for those of you who may not know, Ringo is married to the lovely Barbara Bach, and Barbara's sister, Marjorie, is married to Joe Walsh. So they're brothers-in-law. And I thought, well, now I've got Joe on this track. It would be just great to have Ringo on the same track. And so I just finally got up the nerve to call him and ask, and he, "Edgar, I'll do it for you." And it touched my heart. I don't imagine he plays on that many people's records, and it just means the world to me. I mean, whoever thought a kid from Beaumont, Texas, an albino kid from Beaumont, would end up playing with one of the Beatles?
I would have thought with Ringo, you having been in the Ringo Starr All-Star Band, that it would have been an easier phone call of like, "Hey, Ringo, you remember that one time in Cleveland where I helped you out?" It would have been one of those things.
Yeah, it is full circle. You know, I've played on 2 or 3 of his solo things, and I just don't know. I'm just so much in awe of the Beatles, and I love Ringo. Is not only a great drummer, but just a great human being, a great person, and his outreach and advocacy for peace and love is something I admire tremendously about him. He's just so natural and spontaneous and just right there. He's like really in the moment, very, very quick-witted and sharp-tongued at times, but always in the spirit of fun. And he's just, you know, I'm gonna be playing with him this summer, back with the All-Stars after 10 years, and I'm really, really looking forward to that.
It seems like all the people in Ringo's band kind of are like that. Lukather is a very fun person. Rundgren, who's been in and out in the band a lot of times, fun person. It seems like to be in the Ringo band is less about the hits you had and more of, can you hang with Ringo and be peaceful and non-dramatic?
Yeah, that is a big part of it. I always think of it as the love tour because everybody loves doing it. I love doing it, and people love to see it. I mean, it's just like, you know, my standout memory is in 2010, and it was Ringo's 70th birthday, and we were there at Radio City Music Hall, and there was a big surprise planned for Ringo that he was completely unaware of. And we had walked off stage, and we were coming back from the encore, and walking toward us from the opposite side of the stage, there is Sir Paul McCartney and Joe Walsh, and, you know, Paul strapped on his Hofner. Dun, 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 dun. It's your birthday. And I had that underwater wavery piano, that cool piano sound, and Joe was killing it on guitar, and Ringo was bashing the drums. I said, man, I can't believe it. I'm on stage with with Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. What a blast.
Yeah, everybody goes to those credits. They say, "Hey, Edgar played with Ringo, and he played." There is the usual people where they put Edgar Winter parentheses and Ringo's there, but a lot of people don't really ask you about your time with David Lee Roth because you were in and out of this band a few times. I know that first you were on the Crazy from the Heat EP. You were band leader of the Vegas residency. And a lot of those recordings were on the Diamond Dave album, different things like that. Was he easy to work with, or is that a harder thing than Ringo?
Oh, no, he was easy. I mean, he really is, the way he appears, that's him. He's like some comedians that are always on all the time. That's the way Dave is. His stage persona, I'm not that way. Like when I get on stage, hello everybody, are you ready to rock and roll? And that's not really me. And people meet me and then they say, oh, you're so mild mannered and soft spoken and articulate. And I didn't expect you, to be that person. But David, that's the way, Diamond Dave, that's him, that's who he is. And he called me up. He wanted to do Easy Street and he wanted it to be the real deal, the authentic thing, and asked if I would be on that. And he said, and I got this weird song that you've never heard, I'm sure, Gigolo. And I said, oh, you mean Sam Butera, that played on that played on that, one of my favorite sax players. But Louis Prima, I mean, to me, he I think of him as starting rock and roll, like more than Rock Around the Clock and Bill Haley and the Comets. I mean, he rocked. The Louis Prima stuff was just slamming. And I knew the song. I remember, and I said, "Are you kidding? I'd love to play on that song." So we had a blast, and doing that. And yeah, it was interesting. The Vegas run was something I never expected Dave to go there, to go in that direction. But it was a very cool show. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
I think that you were the only spotlighted person within the Vegas show where you did free ride. I guess that gave him the chance to do a costume change. Whereas Dave is kind of known to, like, this is my show and what I do, but he's always talked wonderfully about you in interviews about you being an influence on him. Did you inspire him to do Tobacco Road? Because you did it 20 years or so before he did.
Yeah, I would assume so. I know he must have been familiar with it, but I never really asked him that question directly. But I always made that assumption. And I thought, oh, great, Dave's doing Tobacco Road. The version. The Nashville Teens had the pop version of the song, which I never really, that wasn't the one for me. Lou Rawls had a version of Tobacco Road, and that was the one with a big horn section, like a big swing band thing, and it had really cool harmonica in it. It was like a fusion of big band and blues, and I loved that. That was pretty much the arrangement, very similar to the arrangement that I came up with White Trash, when we did it there. And of course, I did it on the entrance album with Johnny's Blues Trio for the first time. But it was, the one I liked about Tobacco Road was it, like so many blues songs are kind of down, and that is like overcoming adversity. It's like, coming from humble beginnings and turning things around. And I love that positive message of, bring it back to Tobacco Road. So I was always one of the ones that I used to enjoy singing. And I never really considered myself a singer in the early days. I was more a serious musician. Thankfully, I've gotten over that. But I was more an instrumentalist, than a singer, and developed interest in singing, later. And now I've come to really love it. But Tobacco Road was one of the first songs, that I did. Stormy Monday, that was the other song that I used to sing with Johnny. When we do these long sets, like 5 hours.
5 hours?
Yeah.
You mean 5 1-hour sets or 5 hours straight?
5 well, one break in the middle. Like you'd play from say from 9 to either 8 to 1 or 9 to 2. And a lot of the clubs were in Louisiana, where Beaumont is just several miles from the Louisiana border, and the liquor laws are 18 there in Louisiana as opposed to 21 in Texas. So the Bible Belt is a couple of notches looser over there in Louisiana. Just really just fun-loving, warm-hearted people. And I didn't know that Kenny Wayne Shepherd is from Louisiana, and Bobby Rush. And I didn't find that out. And when I got in the studio with Kenny Wayne, and we started talking about growing up and things, and we had played a lot in a lot of the same clubs in Louisiana. And I thought, no wonder I love this guy's playing so much. He comes, he's right down the road practically, and grew up listening to all the same music, that I did. But it's funny, like this album was great in that respect. Like a lot of the people on it are longtime friends, and a lot of them are people that I never got a chance to work with before. And this is a great opportunity for me to mention Ross Hogarth, who became the co-creator, and Ross was just invaluable. It would not be the album it is without Ross. He made so many great suggestions for people that I was either completely unaware of. Like I didn't know David Grissom, who's a great guitarist, a fellow Texan, and just played some of the greatest stuff. And Ross suggested to him. He suggested Doyle Bramhall to do the acoustic thing, and John McPhee to do the slide on Highway 61 with the Doobie Brothers. Of course, I knew who they were, but I just wouldn't have thought, like, I always thought of John McPhee. I knew he's a great guitarist, but I didn't know he and then was that great of a slide player. And then I remember hearing all those early Doobie songs and all the great slide work, and yeah, you're right, man, that would be perfect. Ross also suggested doing something by Muddy Waters, and I said, man, I can't believe that I hadn't thought of and realized that there has to be a Muddy song on here, because Johnny just loved and idolized Muddy Waters. And I think the high point of his career was getting to meet and play with and make those records with Muddy. It just meant the world to him. And so, of course, that one ended up with Bobby Rush was suggested. The other person that I'll thank here is Bruce Quarto, who is the president of Quarto Valley Records, which is the label that the album is on. And Bruce suggested Bobby Rush. And he's one of those Chicago, like with all of the guys, like Buddy Guy and Willie Dixon and Muddy and Little Walter, Howlin' Wolf, all of those Chicago people. So that was like not only a tribute to Johnny, but to the Chicago blues and to Muddy as well. So sort of a tribute within a tribute. So.
You just mentioned a bunch of artists or people that I'm a fan of and had the pleasure interviewing. Ross Hogarth, to make it very small world, engineered one of my favorite Van Halen albums, A Different Kind of Truth. And I interviewed him when he was inducted into, I think, the Rock Gods Hall of Fame there in California. So Ross is a talented guy, one of those journeymen people behind the scenes. It's not a household name, but is friends with all the household names, kind of like you, where that, yes, you were playing stadiums, but I think the average person knows 10 of your songs, but doesn't quite like know them offhand. You know what I'm saying? Like they would see you live and go, wait, he did that one too? And that one too, and that one too. That's what seeing Edgar Winter live is like to me.
Well, thank you. That's a very generous compliment. You know, what I've tried to do throughout my career, I like you mentioned, you know, the fact that I cover a lot of territory musically, and a lot of my albums are kind of scattered and unfocused. I think one thing that people will love about the album Brother Johnny is that it has a very definite focus. And you know, it's not the album that Johnny would have made, but Johnny always encouraged me to follow my heart in music. You know, I love jazz and classical as well as blues and rock. And I think it's the album that I think if I'd made an album, if I had gone the straight blues route, I don't think Johnny would have liked that. I think he would have said, you know, how come all of a sudden you're trying to sound exactly like me and doing everything the way that I would have done it. So this is the album I think Johnny would have wanted me to make for him.
I think it's also the album that your fans would have wanted to make. So I think you checked a lot of boxes where you were able to make something that was a personal album that's also accessible and also your fans would like.
Yeah, well, I think Johnny has a depth and scope that a lot of people are unaware of. And you mentioned Taylor Hawkins, and
yeah.
Taylor was another suggestion from Ross. And that song, Guess I'll Go Away, that was really one of Johnny's most interesting songs to me. I think the most, by far on the album, it stands out to me as the most hard rocking, energetic song on the, it almost borders on heavy metal. And because of that modern approach, and in terms of the subject matter, it's, you know, about the danger of drugs, and I'd said it was written around the time Johnny went into rehab, the love of rock and roll, the lure of sex, the danger of drugs, and the love of rock and roll. And for Taylor really identified with that song. And when he came in, like, never having met him, I was just his sincerity and his heart in I tried to open a business discussion with him and he would not hear of it. He said, I don't want anything for doing this. I love this song. I love Johnny. I just want to get out there and rock. And man, rock he did. And it just another example of somebody that I never would have imagined being on the record, and another example of how much Ross contributed in the making of it. It definitely took on a life of its own, and it wasn't something I just said, well, I'm going to hit the road and go where it leads me. And just so, you know, there were some highly emotional moments. I didn't know, but it was very cathartic, very cleansing and healing. And after having made it, I feel closer to Johnny in a way that I never would have expected. And, you know, although Johnny has departed this world, I talk to him every day. I think of him, and his presence and his music will live on with me forever. And I'm just so happy that I could make this album. There's so much love in it. And I think that that's what people hopefully will hear, and it'll be a journey that they'll want to go on and come back to again and again.
The fact that it's a Billboard #1 blues album also makes it live on, where it has to be documented in history, the fact that it was a #1 album.
Yeah, I'm over the moon about that. I you know, I wasn't thinking about, I've never thought about fame or success. And that's one of the ways in which Johnny and I are totally different. He had the ambition and the drive. He had that dream ever since I can remember. He was going to be a star. He was Johnny Cool Daddy Winter with the pompadour and the shades and the guitar and the girls. And I was like the quiet kid that played all the instruments. So,
every instrument. Yes.
yeah, yeah. We started out playing ukulele, singing Everly Brothers song. Wake up, little Susie, I wanna go home. You know, songs like that. And then he graduated to guitar, and it became apparent he was going to be the guitar player. And I said, "Well, I'll play everything else." So I picked up bass for a while, and then I played drums, and then I played piano, and then finally saxophone. But it was so much fun growing up playing with Johnny, you know, and this album just brought back all of those memories. So many of the songs that we used to play together when we were young. So, you know, it's just, it was really a joyous, uplifting experience.
I love those, with reference to you playing all the instruments. I love those videos and performances where during Frankenstein, you go to every single instrumental station and play that part of that, which is something that Kid Rock later, I would say, stole from you when he tried to demonstrate that he could play 3 chords on every single thing. So kudos to you on actually being able to walk the walk and playing all those instruments. You did it before Prince did.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just what I did. And it's a great leveler. Like if you ever find yourself, you know, getting bored, pick up a new instrument, you know, then you're back to square one. And it every time I do that, it reminds me of when I started out as a kid. So I also was interested. I loved Ray Charles. Like the other thing that was different, I had mentioned Johnny's drive and determination. And that brings up the song Lone Star Blues, which is one of the 2 songs that I wrote that are original songs. But I tried to write that in Johnny's voice. He went through a period after working his whole life to achieve that goal. When he got it, I remember him saying, I never thought it would be this way. I feel so somehow disconnected. It's though I've become invisible, like this image has taken over, and it's what people see, and I don't feel like I don't know who to talk to. I feel like nobody really knows who I am. And it was a difficult period of readjustment, and he worked through that and came out stronger than ever. After he went into rehab and came out, he rededicated himself to the blues. He went through that rock period with Johnny Winter, which I think was one of the great rock and roll bands of all time. That I think, to me, that was just a killer band. But I tried to write that song as Johnny would have written it at that time. And I know that he, you know, he loved his fans, and he came to appreciate everything that he was able to accomplish. But going through that rough period there, and the thing about that song, the beauty of it is and once again, here's Ross Hogarth. I knew that he had done the Taj album with Kev Moe and Taj Mahal, and I said, "Do you think we could get Kev Moe to do this?" So he set up a phone conversation, and I talked to Kevin, and he was just so down home and beautiful. And he said, "Well," I explained all the concept of the album and the song, and he said, "Well, let me hear it." And he broke that song down and started from scratch. He put all the instruments on. He did exactly what I hoped he would do. I wanted a real, authentic blues man to do that song. And the thing of it was because it was written in Johnny's voice like that.
Mhm.
When he made it, when he made it a duet, and when he came in, like, sounds like the Lone Star Blues. It was like the old. It just had this note of sincerity and compassion, and this whole song seemed to come to life. It was like the old blues man saying to the young confused guy, yeah, you know, things can get tough, but it's going to be all right, you know.
Right.
And that just, it touched my heart and made that song so much better than what it would have been otherwise. And thank you, Kevmo, for making that song what it is. I love you.
If you have time for one more question or topic, great. If not, man, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, I have until 3, actually.
Well, I'll let you go before then. But my last thing is
Good.
a mystery that I've been trying to figure out related to your work with David Lee Roth. If you don't know the answer, that's totally fine. But I figure you remember everything. That's the impression that I get. And that's some cover recordings that Dave did in the late 90s, early 2000s were credited to the DLR Vegas Band. And that includes a cover of Livin' in America, which was done with your old friend Dan Hartman on the songwriting, and Baker Street. Were you part of those recordings? Were you part of the DLR Vegas Band? Because there's no documentation anywhere.
No, I wasn't even aware of that. Well, actually, now that you mention it, I am vaguely aware of his having done Living in America. But I think Dave probably, he obviously had, he was familiar with things that I had done, like Easy Street, and that probably by connection caused him to listen to the things that Dan went on to do. And I'm sure he was familiar with Rick's music. He kind of got to follow our camp. You know, I'm sure he knew Johnny's music as well. But no, I wasn't connected with that in any way.
So you just did the Vegas residency, but you're not part of the DLR Vegas Band.
No, I was not.
So I'm even more confused now because there's now a second DLR Vegas Band.
Well, I didn't, was that after, did that occur after I played with him or before?
I think it was after. I think it was late 90s, early 2000s, because your Vegas show was 1995.
Okay, that sounds about right to me. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, maybe that's what led him. That's probably what led him to do it. Is he thought, well, I'll follow this road here, and that would be an obvious thing to do. Would be, you know, to after the group broke up, I knew that Dan would go on to great success. I had every expectation of that happening, and was certainly not disappointed. Dan just, I mean, people like Tina Turner and James Brown. I mean, amazing. Dan was so cool. He was a lot like myself, a multi-instrumentalist, and could virtually play any instrument, any style. And you know, that, like, the style, the various, I never could understand why music should be separated into genres. I just always sort of rebelled against that. To me, it seemed almost like a kind of musical segregation. It was like, okay, all you cowboys, you'll play country and western, and all these black people are going to play the blues. And I always viewed it as a record company device to target a specific audience. They wanted an artist to be one thing. They had a tendency not to embrace multifaceted artists. They wanted you to be very definitely one thing or the other, so that they could target a you know, do their marketing and target a listening audience. And I always rebelled against that because to me, it's all about trying to forge new frontiers and make people aware of all the music that's out there, to broaden musical horizons. That's always been the thing that I felt. And I love people like that would blend various people, like, say, Sting, who has a jazz sensibility and a great writer, Bruce Hornsby, who sort of country, but can a fluid jazz
play with the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Jazz, but also can do the country thing, but can play with the Grateful Dead. He can improvise, but he's also classically trained. I see what you're saying. Hence, Free Ride, Frankenstein, Tobacco Road, and a Tupac sample, all from one gentleman.
Yeah. It's I never really, when I say that I set out to do that, it really is just naturally who I am.
Yeah.
And unlike Johnny, I never had any desire to be famous. I just had a love of music, a love of chords and harmony and rhythm. And it was Woodstock that utterly changed my life, because up to that point, I had looked at music as my own sort of personal, private escape world. And Johnny was the extrovert and I was the introvert. He reached out to the world with his music. And for me, it was an inner world of self-discovery and something that I sort of withdrew into. But when I played Woodstock, I'll never forget the vibe, this feeling of unity, of somehow being a part of something that was bigger, something that could really make a difference. And I was asleep. I was dead asleep on the floor in a press trailer, and somebody shook me awake. Okay, you're gonna go it on, and I staggered out on stage, and I just found myself looking out over this endless sea of humanity, and it was just an epiphany, a transfiguring moment. I said, "How did I get here? How this is?" I just couldn't believe that I was there, and seeing all of those people united in that unique way, the whole thing being set against the social backdrop of civil rights and the peace movement. And it just made me realize that music could have a higher purpose. It could be so much more than just artistic beauty. It could actually reach out and bring people together in a way that I had never considered. And that, after Woodstock, that's when I actually started to consider what it would be like to be an artist rather than just a musician. And that's when I started to write songs, and Johnny and I did the Entrance album together, and as they say, the rest is history.
And the rest is history. Well, congratulations again on the Brother Johnny album. I think that you checked a lot of boxes with this one, and really hope to see you live in New York in the near future. Just thank you for the many years of great art, Edgar.
Well, thank you, Darren.
Paltrocast.